Tens of thousands of runners converging on New York. Prize money at stake. A $300 million plus reported impact on the city's economy in the offing. This in a city still recovering bodies, still turning on power. Residents have been anecdotally reported dumpster diving for food. Let's turn to our panel. Larry Rawson's going to host the international broadcast of Sunday's marathon, and no major track event is held without Larry reporting, often for ESPN. Marcus Grunwald is the director of the Dallas Marathon, who believes Mike Bloomberg's decision to go forward is the correct one. Joining us on the telephone, New York State Senator Liz Krueger, an opponent to running this race. And also with us, Chris Lopresto, who wrote under the unambiguous headline, "Screw the New York City Marathon" on Huffington Post, who had been entered to indeed join this race. You, Chris, let's start with you on Skype as you join us. Had been entered, had trained for this race. You're choosing not to run. Why?
Well, because my hometown of Great Hill, Staten Island, is decimated. There's damage everywhere. I just got in touch with my mother today. She doesn't have power. She's getting water from friends. Look, all the runners that are running the New York City Marathon, they should go and help other people in Staten Island, in Brooklyn, in Breezy Point. Help New York get on its feet, not run 26 miles for no reason.
All right, Senator Krueger, yesterday we talked on this program with you about this topic. You're an opponent, but more to the point, you said you had addressed several emails to City Hall, to the mayor's staff. Has anybody gotten back to you?
About my position on the marathon, no. They have been responsive finally on getting more emergency food and water into the blacked out zones of Manhattan, but they have chosen not to have a dialogue around the marathon. And I just want to agree so much with your previous speaker. New York City is still in a crisis. We need every single emergency responder doing the jobs they need to be doing to help us rebuild. And runners can help us rebuild, and volunteers. I put out a call for volunteers to go door knock elderly disabled people throughout my district today, and I got huge response, including from people who were runners who said, "We're not running, but we're healthy, and we're going to go up those 30 stories for you."
All right, Larry Rawson, you're not just a former runner yourself. You're one of the leading track journalists in the world. You're also a New Yorker. You live there. I know you're in favor of running the race. Make the case for us.
Bob, I will, and I want to, before I touch on the math and some of this, extend my feelings and everybody else's in New York's for those people who are still, suffering because of this terrible loss and this hurricane that we all went through. And I don't want to appear for a second insensitive. But let's take a look. Chris said that there would be no benefit to having this marathon. And Liz reached out in her own way. There is a major benefit. And Bob, you mentioned $300 million is the independent economic survey for 20,000 foreigners coming here. They come by charter, they stay for a week, they bring family, and then you have all the other runners coming in as well. There'll probably be 45,000 or so on the starting line, something like that, down from 47, maybe 44 or 43,000. But nonetheless, we're talking of a lot of money. Get to the bottom line here. 8.37% city tax for everybody in this race on that $300 million, and another 4% goes to the state of New York, which is trying to close a $1 billion budget deficit right now. So $37 million at least will be realized by the city and the state from this. And what's not talked about is $30 million that has already been committed if the race is run to various charities here in New York and outlying boroughs, and even nationally, that will be a benefit. The Roadrunners have kicked in $1 million of their own money here, a nonprofit organization, to the Mayor's Relief Fund. The mayor's kicked in $1 million. ING has offered $500,000, and the runners are going to be given a chance to check mark and say that they want to commit $26.20 to this whole thing as well. Bottom line, maybe $10 million will go to Staten Island for relief from this race alone. We'll get on this, so it's very meaningful.
All right, we've heard from Alice, who is the executive director, as you said, of the Dallas Marathon, and it's important to get perspective from 1,000, 1,500 miles away. As you watch from halfway across this continent at this decision, what goes through your mind, both as an American and also as a racing executive?
Well, I think the main thing to realize is Americans as a whole, and especially runners, they're a very compassionate bunch. So the runners who do choose to come up there and participate in the race that they've been training 6 to 8 months for are going to be very compassionate towards what's happened up there. You'll see additional donations coming in through them, and I'd be surprised if you didn't see a large number of them volunteering to help out around the marathon as well. So the main thing is you're allowing the runners to make the decision whether or not they want to come up there to New York, as opposed to saying, we don't want you here, you can't do it, and you take away their freedom of choice. You're going to get a lot of additional volunteers as well as money this weekend from the runners who do come up. From Dallas, watching the things I see on TV, I can't even fathom the full extent of all the damage up there, but I do have trust in the up there who are making this decision. So when I heard what the New York Road Runners Club was doing, when I heard that the mayor was taking this into consideration, I knew there was a large group of people who were considering all aspects of having this race or not having this race, and they would make a very informed, intelligent decision. So to the extent the mayor says we want to do it, the New York Road Runners Club says we want to do it, I know the runners want to do it, I support what they're doing.
Liz, this is certainly a sporting decision. It's a business decision. It has a lot of humanity. And this is New York City. It's got politics. You're a state senator. How much cover, as if Mike Bloomberg needed, did Rudy Giuliani give him by being so vociferously in favor of this? Because Rudy Giuliani, after 9/11, even to this day, can do no wrong in the eyes of so many New Yorkers.
I don't think there's that much politics in this one way or the other, to be very honest. I think that from the feedback I've been getting, the tweets, the responses on all the posts I've seen, the vast majority of New Yorkers agree with my position. This isn't really a money argument. Yes, of course, we always want money for charities, for businesses. The estimate is that New York City will have faced $10 billion in damages and loss of businesses from this storm. So X amount of money not coming in from a marathon is a drop in the bucket, or if it comes in. And frankly, since we have people desperately searching for hotel rooms in this city because they don't have no homes and no electricity, it's actually a real issue that so many people are still trying to travel here for the marathon because they are in competition with pre-existing reservations for hotel rooms that could otherwise go to people who have no home.
And we hear a lot of anecdotes about
big,
that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Well, but Larry, just to continue the idea of politics, we have seen in the last day or less both the New York City controller and the borough president of Manhattan. If you live outside of New York City, there's an entire amalgam of political officials involved there. But two major officials here of the New York City government have done 180s. Initially in favor, Larry, and now they're against it.
I did see that, Bob, and I don't know all the reasons why the city controller came out against this thing. But, let me add a point. Most of the people who come stay in New York City where the hotel rooms are really expensive. I would imagine in outlying areas that are safer, either south of Staten Island, maybe down in the Pennsylvania area that could be open and inland a bit, would be more reasonable places that they might be able to find to stay than $300 and $400 rooms, which are in the principal inner city that these tour groups have already booked at this point for the people to fly in. They fly in on charter flights. That's how many people will come in from Mexico and from Germany and from France, and that's all prearranged ahead of time. They came in on schedule, and the rooms were already booked months ago. And they, as Liz knows, the rooms are not cheap in New York City.
Okay. New Jersey is dark. Pennsylvania is dark. We have no effective transportation for people in and out of the city. There is no realistic way to ship people who have lost their homes to some other state to cheaper hotels at this moment
Liz,
in
let
history.
me ask you something.
Sure.
Liz, can I ask, what's exactly dark in Pennsylvania? The whole Philadelphia is not dark, and many of the areas outside are not dark.
My sister on the main line hasn't had electricity in a week. My sister in New Jersey isn't going to have electricity for at least another work. Westchester County can't get the trucks in to repair the wires because the trees are down. I would argue, and I love Central Park, it's my district, repairing one tree down in Central Park is a wrong use of resources at this moment in history.
Absolutely. And can I just say, there's so much talk about money. It's not about money. This is the richest city in our country. You think we need money from New York Roadrunners? No. It's about people's lives. People are dead. We're finding dead bodies all the time. It's not about money. Stop making it about money. All right? It's about people not having heat, not having power. I mean, come on, let's be human.
Chris, what do you say to the sense that has been expressed by proponents of running the race? And we've heard this from Rudy Giuliani. You heard it in that clip earlier, and Mike Bloomberg has said the same thing. It's going to lift spirits. The actual 9/11 analogy.
No, it's wrong, honestly. People, if they see people running for the marathon, they're going to treat them like the soldiers from Vietnam. They're going to boo them because who cares about a marathon right now? Like the police officers that are barricading the streets, they can be better served, I don't know, somewhere else, helping someone, doing anything, maybe gas for ambulances because someone pulled a cramp in a marathon. You honestly think an ambulance is better off used in a marathon instead of in Staten Island? Come on.
Marcus, what do you make of this crosstalk here?
Well, again, I'm in Dallas, so I'm not in New York seeing this firsthand. But I've got to think that American people as a whole, if you needed a hotel room and they weren't available in Dallas, we would open our doors. I mean, the people of Dallas would say, "Hey, come stay in my house with me," and we'd find a way to get it done. I've got to think that in New York, that first of all, it would be nice to take a short break away from the relief efforts that they've been working on since Sunday night and spend a few hours with the marathon, just as a diversion, but also to show the world, again, the spirit and the abilities of the New York people as a whole to host something like this. And I really think that the generosity is going to be a two-way street. I don't think the people of New York are just going to boo and shout all the runners and we don't want you here because we've had this big, serious, damaging storm. I think the New Yorkers are going to take a lot of pride in what they are able to accomplish this weekend.
Larry, covering the race as you will.
I agree with that.
Yeah, let's talk about the race itself. What amendments? Any changes to the course that you heard on in the last 48 hours? Any
None.
Any concessions to what is facing this race?
No, I think the area that the race encompasses, to the best of my knowledge, has little or any flooding that occurred. Central Park obviously needed to be cleaned up as far as trees go. I live right off of First Avenue, and at our Halloween party, two things occurred. Nobody ever said that the marathon, they know I'm involved with the sport, and they know I'm involved with the telecast of it, and nobody said that they thought that the event shouldn't be held. And there were numerous families in the high-rise building I'm in that had taken friends and relatives in because they lost power. And I think that story is repeated across the city because people have friends, and as Marcus said, this is a very generous society. No country in the world gives more financially to different charities than America does. We're a very giving society. And my read of things is that it is not as catastrophically against this race by any means as Chris has portrayed. And I think when you sit down and kind of say people are generous and people will be supportive, and you can look at over $70 million that will go to either charities or directly to taxes to help relieve the problems in Staten Island and Long Island, that's a big statement to say you want to shut everything down because you get nothing back for it.
Chris, you're making, in your eyes, a sacrifice not running in this race. It's not an easy race to get into, to apply, and to qualify for.
That's right.
Just in about 15 seconds, can you encapsulate how much you've trained for this moment that you're walking away from?
Yeah, I've trained for 401 miles. I've done countless hours of, I've changed my diet. It is killing me that I'm going to miss this because I want to do it. I take pride in it. I love running the New York City Marathon. I grew up watching it in person. And I don't care. I'd rather help other people. And that's what everyone else should do.
He's stepping aside.
But at the same time,
well, I wish we had more time, but thank you so much, Larry Rawson. Marcus Grunwald, Senator Liz Krueger, thanks for joining us again, and Chris Lopresto. Appreciate it all. Now, speaking of sports, the